this driver know my speech? And the driver said, because it's the same speech you give every time. He said, you know, I wish you could go give the speech instead of me. He said, but I know you'd never be able to answer the questions afterwards. He said, actually, try me. Go ahead. So he asked him a question. He knew the answer. Another question. Another. They said, how is it that this man, this driver, is knowing all the answers to these questions? He said, because it's the same questions people always ask you after every speech. The scientist said, you know what? Trade places. Let me drive. Give me the cap. I'm going to sit in the back. And then when we get there, you'll go in as the scientist and I'll be the driver. Okay. So when they got there, the driver really was the scientist, pull up. And they grabbed the guy from the back and took him to the stage. He's a driver now. He get up, give the whole speech. They said, wow, look at that. And then at the end, they had the questions, you give answers out. Oh, look at this. But then at the very end, and the scientist in the back watching the whole thing, At the very end, though, one lady, she stood up and she asked a question. Nobody ever asked it before. It reminds me of what happens to me when the ladies ask us. But the driver was really sharp. Taxi drivers are pretty smart people. And he said, Madam, that's a very simple question. That question is so simple, I'm going to let my driver answer it. And with that, I want to introduce my driver and my sheikh, whom I love very much, Sheikh Jafar Idrees.
Brothers and sisters, welcome Sheikh Jafar Idrees.
In fact, I am a real driver. He is the professor. I am a real driver. And that's why, inshallah, I will give him a few minutes after I finish to comment on what I have said and perhaps even to correct some of the things that I have to say. Our topic is a peaceful coexistence. We mean peaceful coexistence of Muslims with people of other faiths. By peaceful coexistence, then I mean that any Muslims who understand their religion will have no problem in living in peace with people of other people who differ with them on the fundamentals of the religion. I repeat, that Muslims will have no problem in living at peace with people who differ with them on the fundamentals of the religion. And by living in peace with them, I mean that they will not insult them, they will not attack them, they will not wage any war on them. They will live with them peacefully. Why do I say this? What are my reasons for saying this? The first and most important is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Prophet Muhammad and sent all the prophets before him, what did he tell them to do? He told them, he sent them as teachers to invite people to the truth. I used to tell people in the United States that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends prophets with books. He doesn't send generals with machine guns. Because the important thing is that people understand the message. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses for them the most capable person of conveying his message to them and explaining it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not only say that you should convey this message, he explains to the prophets and to people like us who call themselves da'iyas how to convey this message. And you find this in a famous verse in the Quran, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil-hikmati wal-maw'izati al-hasana." Invite to the way of your Lord with hikmah, translated wisdom, and al-maw'izah al-hasana, translated good admonition. But I will elaborate somewhat on what these two words mean according to the books of tafsir and hadith and so on. To invite people with wisdom means to invite them in the best way that suits them. First, you talk to them in a language which they understand. That is not just that if they speak English, you speak them to them in English, or if they speak Arabic, you speak to them in Arabic. It also means that we keep telling many of the da'iyas about this, that not everyone who speaks Arabic, say, understands classical Arabic. So when you go to speak to ordinary people, you speak to them in a language, Arabic language, which they understand.
Salah is the mother of all worships. Salah is your appointment with Allah. Salah is the safe haven of the believer. Salah is your gateway to happiness. Salah is the wish of the deceased. So join me for Salah Revisited and discover what you've been missing out on.
Understand the remarkable guidelines that help in making our Salah rewarding and acceptable in Salah Revisited. Tomorrow at 11 p.m. and repeat telecast at 12 p.m. India on Peace TV.
It costs nothing, but give us Jannah. Remember Allah's blessing and His commandment. Follow His prophets and His books. Do what He wants to get what you want.
Adopt the acts that polish our hearts from its rust and cause us to be remembered by Allah in Remembering Allah with Hussein Yee. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. and repeat telecast at 11:30 a.m. India on Peace TV.
I used to tell people in the United States that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends prophets with books. He doesn't send generals with machine guns. Because the important thing is that people understand the message. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses for them the most capable person of conveying His message to them and explaining it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not only say that you should convey this message, He explains to the prophets and to people like us who call themselves da'iyas how to convey this message. And you find this in a famous verse in the Quran, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana." Invite to the way of your Lord with hikmah, translated wisdom, and al-maw'idha al-hasana, translated good admonition. But I will elaborate somewhat on what these two words mean according to the books of tafsir and hadith and so on. To invite people with wisdom means to invite them in the best way that suits them. First, you talk to them in a language which they understand. That is not just that if they speak English, you speak them to them in English, or if they speak Arabic, you speak to them in Arabic. It also means that we keep telling many of the da'iyas about this, that not everyone who speaks Arabic, say, understands classical Arabic. So when you go to speak to ordinary people, you speak to them in a language, Arabic language, which they understand. And the same thing with English. That's why I used to tell the brothers in the United States that we are not the most suitable people for making da'wah in the United States, because once I start to talk, people can realize that I have an accent, that I am not American. And this creates a kind of distance between myself and those people. But I am suitable for addressing people who are already Muslims and who are interested in learning. So it doesn't make a difference to them whether I have a heavy accent or not, whether I am American or not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said also, with good admonition. By good admonition is meant that you approach them in the best way that makes it easier for them to accept the truth. This is called maw'iza hasana. You see, I can give people evidence that relates to wisdom. I can give them evidence, but I must do my best to make it easy for them to accept this truth for which I gave them evidence. Because Allah knows, He created us, He knows us, that many of us might not accept the truth just because of the evidence that is given. So I try to make it easy for them by treating them nicely, because if you treat a person nicely, he will like you, and then because of the fact that he liked you, his heart might be inclined more to accepting what you told him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, now you invite people, as I have just said, with wisdom, with hikmah and maw'idah hasana. So that was my first reason for saying that you live in peace with other people, because only thing that you start doing is to invite them. And if you invite them in a peaceful way, that will help them to accept the truth. The second reason, which confirms the first, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet not only to invite people with wisdom and good admonition and to argue with them in the best of ways, but He told him that is the only thing you can do. That is the only thing you can do. You as a human being have no control over people's hearts and minds. When we say this, people usually remember the verse, La ikraha fi ddin. La ikraha fi ddin, which is translated, no compulsion in religion. And this is in the books of tafsir, they say, some of the mufassirin say that this is a statement of fact. This is a statement of fact. It is a statement of fact that you cannot compel anyone to accept the religion. And because this is the fact, then don't try what is impossible. So it is a statement, but it is at the same time an order. Don't try to do what Allah tells you is impossible. Because this religion, you don't become a Muslim by just saying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. You can point a gun to someone and tell him to say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. He will say it. Does that make him a Muslim? No, because someone can point a gun to me and I am a Muslim, and say you don't believe in Muhammad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me the permission to say this, so long as that doesn't affect my heart. إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ. So prophets don't use force, because their role is to invite people to the true religion, not just to make them say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, or to go to the mosque and pray, and so on. This is an outward act that the hypocrites can do, and they, in fact, do sometimes even better than good Muslim. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells his prophet that you have no control over people's hearts and minds. This verse, as I said, that comes to the mind as soon as we say something like this, no compulsion in religion, is not an isolated verse. Many people think that it is the only verse which affirms this fact, the fact that there is no compulsion in religion. But inshallah, when you read the Quran, I give you some examples, and you will find more examples in the Quran, inshallah. For example, Allah tells his prophet, إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُذَكِّرٌ لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطِرٍ. You are only a reminder. You have no control over them. Isn't that the same as saying no compulsion in religion? It says, أَفَأَنْتَ تُكْرِهُ النَّاسَ حَتَّى يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ. Are you the one who can coerce people until they have faith? This is asked in a rhetorical way. Of course, he is not. Allah tells his prophet, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. No, you don't guide whom you like or whom you love. It is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who guides. So there are two kinds of guidance. The guidance of the prophet and of people who follow in the steps of the prophet is to guide people by explaining the truth to them, and by explaining it very clearly. ما على الرسول إلا البلاغ المبين. البلاغ means to convey the message, and mubin means to make it as clear as possible by your word of mouth and by your deeds. Make it very clear for the people. That's where your role ends. Whether they accept it or whether they don't accept it, that is not left to you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not hold you responsible for people's rejecting what you said. We read in a hadith that on the day of judgment, some prophets will come with very few followers. Some will come with only 2 or 3. And some prophets will come with no follower at all. They spent all their time telling people, conveying the truth, but no one accepted it. Will Allah tell them that you failed as prophets to convey my message? No, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not ask them to instill faith in the hearts of people. He only told them to explain the truth to the people, and they did it. Noah spent almost 1,000 years doing this, and at the end, all the people who accepted Islam with him were very few that he could take in a boat, and he is considered one of the greatest messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lead people to the truth and leave others to go astray? Because Allah knows what goes on in people's hearts. If He knows that a person is honest and he is seeking the truth, Allah will help him and will make it easy for him to see the truth and accept it. If Allah knows that a person is dishonest or that he is not really seeking the truth, He will not help him to see it or to accept it. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in one of the verses, told the Prophet to tell some of the captives, some of the kafir captives, to tell them, إن يعلم الله في قلوبكم يؤتكم خيرا مما أخذ منكم. إن يعلم الله في قلوبكم خيرا يؤتكم خيرا مما أخذ منكم. If Allah knows that there is some good in your heart, He will give you better than what has been taken away from you. My third reason for saying that Muslims have no problem in living peacefully with other Muslims is the experience that the Muslims at the time of the Prophet had. And that experience was repeated in later years. The experience was, perhaps you heard about something called the Agreement of Hudaybiyah. See, the Kafirs at Mecca were at war with the Muslims in Medina. Then they signed an agreement. It was a peace truce that was supposed to last for 10 years. When they signed that truce, and on their way back to Medina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down Surah Al-Fath and said, Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. We have indeed given you a great victory. Many of the Muslims, many of the companions of the Prophet, even some of the great ones, like Umar, did not understand what was the victory in this agreement. Because I don't want to go into the details of the agreement, because for them, they thought it was even unfair. It was even unfair. But when Allah said that this is victory, of course, they accepted the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Investment has its own risks and waiting periods. Profit or loss is not guaranteed. But do you know of any investment that assures you a sure profit, not in this life, but in the hereafter? Yes, it is an investment in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Join us in spreading the true message of our Creator Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mankind.
Support Peace TV. Send your zakat and donation to IRFI, Al Rayyan Bank, Quadrant Court, 48 Calthorpe Road, Birmingham, UK. Pound account number 011323301. IBAN GB52 LOYD 3096 3401 0241 92. Sort code 300083. Swift BIC code IBOBGB22. Please confirm your bank transfers at admin@peacetv.tv.
Support Peace TV, the solution for humanity.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Ahmed ibn Saifuddin. You're watching Peace TV, the solution for humanity.